Welcome back to another episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. I'm Dave Polykoff, founder of Zenpost.com, which is your blueprint for giving business pros like you the tools, templates, and tactics to attract, convince, and convert your dream clients online. Again, check out Zenpost.com for more about how you can launch, grow, and monetize your personal brand today. On today's episode, we have John Horn, CEO of Stub Group. Today, we're going to learn about how John has used the power of personal branding to grow his business and career. So, John, welcome to the show.
Dave, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, you are in the online advertising space. And what I love to do at the top of every episode is ask the dreaded question that we get asked at every business networking event, every time we're out shaking hands with people. So, John, what it is that you do?
Yeah. Simply put, we connect our clients with customers online using digital advertising, specifically platforms like Google Ads and Meta Ads.
Sure. And who would be kind of an ideal client for you?
Ideal client is going to be a business who is investing, a decent amount into advertising or open to investing a decent amount of budget into advertising. When I say decent amount, it doesn't have to be tons and tons of money, but enough to allow us to, prove the model for them. And it could be an e-commerce website selling products. It could be a lead generation business. It could be a personal brand. We work with a pretty wide variety of types of businesses, but ultimately, people who want to find customers, find leads online, and then nurture those into dollars in the door.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned finding clients online, nurturing them into new clients. That's a large part of personal branding, which is what we want to talk about today. With you mentioned there, you work with personal brands for lead gen specifically. So that's where I'm curious is what are some of the tactics that you're seeing either for your clients or just around the industry for how personal brands are generating leads through online advertising?
Yeah, great question. The first thing I'll say to set the stage is that advertising is not always the right fit for every brand or for every maturity level for every personal brand. So I'll probably talk, during the conversation today about some of the things that I think about when deciding whether or not it makes sense. But I'm definitely a believer that for some people, it makes more sense based upon where you're at to really focus on things organically and put the elbow grease into things. But really, when I think of the paid side of things for personal brands, there's a couple of categories first of how it can work. So if you have offers and approaches that you've already tested and that are already working well, advertising can be a great way to pour fuel on that fire and be able to disseminate those flows, those funnels, the things that are working well to a wider audience and really scale you up. So it can be really good for that, fuel in the fire of what's working well for you. Or it can be good for proving concept. Let's say you have a new course or something that you've created and you want to see if people are interested in it, and you may not have the time to try and build that up organically, and you need people to see it quickly and find out quickly what's your conversion rate. Are they interested? Are they not? Where are they dropping off? Advertising can be great for that because you can easily get what you're doing in front of a bunch of people quickly and then see where those drop-offs are if you're willing to invest the money to test things out. So foundationally, those are kind of the two categories that I would start with thinking about, how you're going to use paid advertising for building your own brand or selling your own, content.
That's really interesting. That second point you mentioned about kind of proof of concept prior to investing more into actually building out that concept. So I want to come back to that. So for those who are interested more specifically in the lead gen campaigns and have never run advertising before, don't really understand it, first of all, where are some of their options to actually be running these campaigns? Where should maybe they be focusing based on what type of industry they're in? And what are some of the options on these channels that they can use to start generating leads?
Yes, I would say the top platforms in terms of scale and reach are usually going to be Google and Meta. And I'll put LinkedIn there as well, especially on the personal brand building side of things, because there's a lot you can do with LinkedIn. But I'll probably talk more about Google and Meta in today's conversation. And then within Google and Meta, there's a lot of different things. So let's talk Google. With Google, let's say the primary campaign type people think about when they think about Google is Google search. You see ads come up when you search for things, and that can be a very powerful type of campaign. But I will say it's probably one of the less common campaign types that I see working for most people in kind of the brand building or personal brand building space, just because the traffic, a click there can be way more expensive than a click from other types of platforms, channels we'll talk about. And then also, you need someone looking for exactly what you're trying to serve. Whereas a lot of people who are building things, they're finding the right type of person and then saying, hey, I'm making you aware of this opportunity. So search can be a good fit for some, but usually not the first place you go. In terms of Google, YouTube, I would say is probably the first place that I'd go for a lot of people building a personal brand, because that is a little more push marketing, where you're identifying the right type of person, maybe based upon the types of content they watch, the type of channels that they're going to on YouTube, the types of keywords they're searching on Google before they spend time on YouTube. And then you can serve video ads, whether shorts or long form, that give you potentially a lot of bang for your buck and help you really reach a lot of people. And then similar thing on the meta side of things with both Facebook and Instagram. I would generally orient towards video content, as well as some good static image content. But video in particular, I'd say is king right now in many places. And with Meta and Instagram, it's kind of about, again, finding the right type of person that you're trying to reach through the targeting abilities that those platforms provide, and then beginning to serve your ads to them and see, okay, which messaging is working, which is not, and then iterating on that.
So you mentioned a few different ad formats there, and we'll get into that as well, because yeah, I think people, when they think of advertisement, they probably think of just that little square static ad that you see on so many websites, but there are so many alternative options. But first I want to get into the idea of, okay, so lead gen campaign typically means you have some sort of carrot that you're enticing people with, in for them to give you their contact information. What are ways that you're seeing people are using lead gen campaigns? What are kind of the assets? What are the carrots that people are using in order to attract people to click on the ad and then it be enticing enough to give away their phone number or their email address?
Yeah, great question. So there's kind of some categories, I would say, of tried and true things that generally work, and there's always experimental stuff as well. But first of all, the important thing is provide real value in exchange for the contact information you're asking for. And whether that be, a lead magnet where you're saying, hey, click through the ad, go to a landing page, fill in your email address, and I'm going to send you a document with helpful information. That could be, if you're going after people in the real estate space, it could be, hey, here's 5 things that real estate investors should be aware of when they're finding their next flip. If you're going after, accountants and you're an influencer in the accountant space, it could be, 5 new things to be aware of in this next tax filing season, whatever. Something that's actually going to be interesting to your audience and valuable, because you want to create a relationship that you're going to nurture over time. And most people, they're not going to give you their credit card day one. They're going to, maybe give you their email address in exchange for some information. And if you over deliver on that and they really like it and that's helpful to them, then you've gained some trust and you can keep nurturing that over time to get to the point where you can, obviously take their payment information in exchange for something of greater value. So lead magnets are still can be very effective and powerful. Videos as a lead magnet. So, hey, here's, the first 2 minutes of a really helpful video about X, Y, and Z topic. Enter your email address to get the other 28 minutes, that kind of thing. That can work very well. And in some cases, access to, let's say, a free community, could be a Slack group, a school group, whatever, something where people can get in and start interacting with other people of like mind and asking questions and finding things and engaging with you as the owner of that community. That can be very helpful as well. And lastly, I would say there's more time involved, but free consultations of some type can also be very powerful, where it's, hey, free 15-minute, ask me anything, or, whatever it is, I'll review your ad account for free and give you ideas, or, fill in the blank, but something where they're actually scheduling conversation with you. Again, harder to scale that because that's your time, but also a very powerful and compelling offer that gives you the ability to very quickly create a relationship with that person because you're literally going to be talking with them and dealing with their pain points. And so that can be very powerful as well.
Now, you mentioned the word there, powerful, in terms of, there's a lot of powerful lead gen opportunities with online advertising. How have you been using advertising maybe for your own business or your own personal brand to either grow your business, grow your leads, et cetera?
Yeah, for me and for Stub Group, we invest and I invest a lot of time into the video side of things, so creating content. So we put a lot out through YouTube in particular. That's kind of our number one channel we go to, and then we'll often repurpose content from there across other channels as well to reach people who are in other places. But ultimately, it's about okay, creating again that useful content, and on our side, that's completely free content, and there's not even there's not a gateway there initially where people have to enter an email address or something to get that content. It's completely free on YouTube. But our hope is to provide helpful enough content that we then get people to subscribe to the channel. So that's kind of the next step. First is, okay, content's cool. Let me subscribe, get more of this. Now you're a subscriber. Now we're in your feed on a regular basis. You're hopefully continuing to find our videos helpful. Most of our videos obviously are oriented around digital advertising, things that we're seeing work well or not work well, or tips to save money, etc. And then, from there, we will, at times will create either an ad with a more specific call to action that we can point to our subscribers saying, hey, come fill out this form to get a free guide, that kind of thing. As well as we can have, links in our descriptions to our videos and calls to action to, hey, come get a free consultation, things like that. And we found that to be, very, very powerful and impactful, where we just give a lot for free, a lot of information for free, and prove credibility, show that we know what we're doing. And since I'm often the face of those videos, people kind of get accustomed to seeing my face, and then they think, oh, I need help. I need help with this. Stub Group's, got me. Let me go reach out to Stub Group.
It's an interesting thing you mentioned there, kind of a brand awareness play. Sometimes it's not necessarily that you're driving someone to a form for them to capture their information right then and there, what they call like a direct response campaign, but more so you maybe already have an existing asset, a YouTube channel, maybe your LinkedIn profile. And what I like to say is your LinkedIn profile is like your personal brand landing page. So if you're driving a more brand awareness play and less of a direct response play, you're getting more eyeballs to your asset, your digital billboard. And then from there, you're letting your content kind of do the selling and allow them to organically maybe find your contact form, DM, or your lead magnet from there. So in those cases, it sounds like there's that play, there's a direct response lead form play, and then at the top of the episode you mentioned validation of a product. So there's sounds like there's just multiple ways to utilize paid advertising. When a client comes to you, what is kind of the conversation you're having at the beginning of that relationship to understand what their needs are so that you can help guide them into what direction they need to go?
Yeah, first we're trying to figure out what, like you said, what are their needs? What are they trying to accomplish? So we'll often ask, what does success look like for you? And not uncommonly, they don't really know. And so we have to talk with them and kind of figure that out together, because there's generally the idea of, well, let's run some paid advertising and see what happens. But really, we want to say, okay, well, we want to set this up for success. We don't want to just see what happens. We want to understand when something happens, is that good or is that bad? And so it's figuring out, okay, what are we advertising? Are we trying to just generally make more people aware of you? Okay, how are we going to quantify that? Are we trying to sell a particular service that you're offering? Great. Well, realistically, what can we afford to spend in advertising based upon your lifetime value of what you're selling there to generate a sale? And we're probably not going to hit that, week one, month one, but we need to understand what the expectation is. So we might say, what, you're trying to sell this for $1 a person. That's never going to work with paid advertising. It's just not realistic. So we need to either do something else, or you need to focus organically. And so it's really figuring out what is success, and then working our way back from there to figure out which platforms are going to make sense to use, and that will to some extent be dictated upon by any initial traction they already have. If someone already has a popular YouTube channel, well, awesome. Let's build upon that. Let's help you scale that. If someone has a lot of people following them on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, great. Let's take advantage of that. And then also obviously understanding and digging into where does their target audience spend time. And often they're going to have, hopefully, a decent sense of that if they understand their audience. So is this people who are spending time on Instagram? Is it people who are on LinkedIn networking? Are they watching YouTube? Are they on TikTok? Figuring out what platforms they spend their time on so that we can go to the right platform and not waste time and money on platforms where there's a smaller concentration, potentially, of the people that they're trying to reach.
I know in advertising and lead gen campaigns, there's a lot of important KPIs, things to be looking at to ensure that you're running a successful campaign. You mentioned the idea of like the customer lifetime value versus how much it costs you to actually get that customer. What are some of the things that you're looking at when you're running a client's campaign to ensure that it's successful? And then what are some of the, I know there's a lot of acronyms in lead gen. Can you walk us through some of the some of those key words and acronyms that your clients and we should all know about?
Absolutely. There are so many acronyms. I have a fun T-shirt I got one time. It's just full of acronyms from the SEM, the search engine marketing space. So let's walk away. I'll start kind of on the let's say from the ad side of things, and I work our way through the funnel. So some of the things you'll look at when you're running ads are CPM, which is cost per 1,000 impressions. How much are you paying per 1,000 impressions you get? Usually you're looking more at that when you're looking at kind of push marketing. So Meta, YouTube, usually you don't really care about that if you're running search campaigns. There you'd look at CPC, or cost per click. So how much are you spending per click? So you'll look usually kind of those metrics, and there's not per se a right and wrong cost per 1,000 impressions. Those are more signals where there are some benchmarks out you can benchmark against, but also when you're comparing ads and saying, okay, well, this ad is more effective than that one. That means this ad is more cost effectively reaching people than that one. It has maybe a lower CPM. And then you've got things like click-through rate, so CTR. Click-through rate is what percentage of people who see your ad are clicking through. The higher that rate is, the more likely engaging and compelling your ad is, because more people are engaging with it. And also, generally speaking, the more the platforms will like your ad and show it because they want to make money. Higher click-through rates equals more clicks, and they also know it equals more relevance as well. And so they are going to feature your ads with higher click-through rates over people whose ads have lower click-through rates. Then you've got, as you kind of go through the funnel, once someone has clicked and gotten to, let's say you have a landing page that you're sending traffic to, now you've got conversion rate. So what percentage of people who get to your landing page then take the action you want them to take? That's your conversion rate. And again, there's not always a right and wrong rate, but it's about increasing that over time and comparing. So if you're testing 2 pages, this one has a 10% conversion rate, this one has a 5% conversion rate. Well, boom, automatically the 10% one is twice as effective at getting people into your funnel as the other one. And so you want to, make that the winner and keep testing. Then from there, that initial conversion, like we talked about, often is not money in the door for you. That might be someone filling out a form with an email address. So now the question is, all right, well, what's happening once they get into my lead flow? What is the conversion rate of taking them from that step to the next step, which is maybe book a call, to the next step, which is maybe purchase a product? Whatever that funnel looks like, you want to track the conversion rate for each step there. And then, like you said, you've got lifetime value. So once you've gotten someone who's paying you money, what's the lifetime value of that customer? Do you only have a single thing to sell them, and so they pay you $300 and that's it? That's your lifetime value? Or do you have upsells and cross sells, things that you can continue to sell them over time? So maybe your first transaction is $300, but maybe over time, as you look at the averages of your customers, you're realizing, hey, a new customer is worth $1,000 to me because they're going to keep coming back. And obviously, if you have any kind of monthly recurring model in place, lifetime value is a big part of that, which is, hey, you're making $100 a month from this client. Okay, they stay around for 12 months on average. That's $1,200 lifetime value on average. And probably the last percentage or KPI I'll get to there is also churn rate, or really retention rate, which is at how often are you losing customers? So if you have any kind of a recurring thing in place, how long are they staying around? How quickly are they churning out? And the more you can do to increase that retention by offering a better service, more value, better price points, whatever the case may be, the more money you're going to make because you've already spent money to acquire that client, and now it's just a matter of keeping that relationship and continuing to generate revenue from them moving forward.
You mentioned that you work with clients that maybe already have existing ad campaigns going on, and they're coming to you for whatever reason, or for our audience who are personal brands that are interested in doing a lead gen campaign and maybe like, hey, let me try to do this myself. What are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing, both people who are actively trying it, or what are some of the mistakes you can help people avoid making in the future with that full funnel that you just talked about?
Yeah, many mistakes that we've seen. Some of the top ones that come to mind, I'd say first is not tracking things properly. So when I say tracking, understanding, okay, so I'm getting this number of clicks. How many people are actually filling out to the form? Do I have tracking in place so that Meta, if I'm running Meta ads campaigns, they know which ads are turning into those conversions so I can see that and see, oh, this ad, maybe it's got a better click-through rate, but people are actually converting much better when they get to the landing page. So actually maybe this one's working better. Stuff like that. So tracking is super important. The caveat I always give to is tracking is not 100% accurate. There are always going to be gaps and issues. People who've got, ad blockers turned on that can interfere with tracking codes, people who convert across multiple devices, things like that. So it's not going to always be 100% accurate, but the closer you can get to accurate, the better, and it will give you very good signals of what's working and what's not working. So that's probably the biggest mistake I see is not tracking things properly. And then probably after that, I would say really not understanding where they're running their ads. So let's say on the search side of things for Google search campaigns, often we'll have a client, they're targeting, a set of keywords and they think they know what searches their ads are showing up for. But then when we dig kind of into the back end and show them the actual search terms that are triggering their ads, they realize, oh, wait, this stuff is not relevant. I'm just wasting money on this. I need to change what I'm targeting. And similar thing on really any platform. On YouTube, you can dig in and be like, you know what? Most of our traffic, most of our video views are coming from channels with kids videos. Probably not our target audience. Probably mom and dad have given little Billy the phone and they're, watching Baby Shark, and we don't really want to be showing up on that content because that's just a waste of our money. And so I should add negative placements and change, the places where my ads can serve. So yeah, mistake number two, I would say just not really understanding where their ads are serving and consistently digging in to prevent, to find issues and prevent those from continuing to waste their money.
Now, I know the advertising space, for those who aren't in it or in marketing in general, sometimes has a negative rap because no one really likes to see advertisements, right? Now, we have personal brands to protect, and it's our face kind of on these ads. Do you have any tricks or tactics that you can provide for helping an ad, one, reach the right audience so at least the right people are seeing it, and two, the ad can come off less like an ad and more just like a friendly, helpful person that wants to help you because they know you're facing the problems that they can solve. How can we come across less salesy and advertisey in our advertisements essentially?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. A couple things that come to mind. First of all, are truly provide value to people. So biggest thing that I would say people hate is the sales tactics of, oh, clickbaity, click this and you'll make $1 million or whatever. You click it and it's something different. Just don't do that. Build a brand where you're delivering on the promises, the expectations you're setting. If you create an ad, you create the expectation, hey, if I click this, I'll see something. Make sure they see it, or make sure that they see it and more, and so that they're pleasantly surprised by how much value you're contributing. Same thing when you send a lead magnet, like we talked about earlier. Provide real value. Don't just send them a silly checklist that they could have done themselves. Actually, send them a 5-page document that really builds value and builds relationship. So provide value, I'd say. Next thing I would say is in terms of the tone of the ads, just try not to come across salesy. Try to, and salesy means something different to everybody, but you know it when you see it. Kind of the used car feeling of, okay, I'm creating a video and oh, that just feels sleazy or wrong. No, just be authentic, and come across in the way that you want people to communicate with you. So put yourself in the shoes of your target audience. What would you find interesting, helpful, enjoyable, and then create that and do that and iterate over time and see what's working and what's not working. And that's one of the beautiful things about the digital advertising side of things is that you can see through metrics like click-through rate, you can get a pretty good sense for whether people are resonating with your ads. It's not like a TV ad where you throw it out and you hope people come to you. With digital advertising, you can see, are people clicking or not? And if they are not clicking, then it doesn't seem to be of value or interest to them. Let's try a different ad and see if we get a higher click-through rate there. Okay, we know that this is more interesting, more helpful to people. Let's build upon that and use those metrics that all the platforms provide to you to be able to learn about your audience and figure out what they like and what they don't like.
I think what's interesting too is since we are personal brands, most of us are creating video content already for, let's say, Instagram, TikTok. So we already have this camera recording and personality that we're coming across in our kind of organic content. And then when we go to create an advertisement, I think it would probably be very important that those two things are very cohesive. So the personality you're giving off in your ad needs to reflect the same personality that they're going to find within your content, because then it feels very much like a bait and switch of, especially if you're going to be a coach or a consultant, to come across a certain way where someone goes, oh, I'm vibing with this person's personality. Let me click off and check them out. And then all of a sudden they're like an introvert, completely different. It's very much a bait and switch. So it's like false advertising, if you will. Yeah, to kind of, I guess, come across differently than you would, on a Zoom call or in your content.
That's a fantastic point, 100%. And I think one way to think about it too is if you have organic content that is good, people are engaging with, that can be your ad as well. You don't always have to go and record a quote unquote ad. You can use the ad platforms to put fuel behind other videos, organic videos, or posts that are already engaging with people, and then you just expand the scope of the number of people who can see that with your advertising, and that can be a very, very powerful way for people in the personal brand space to keep that same organic feel, and then just get that in front of more people.
That's a great point as well. I've seen that a lot. Again, it goes back to that brand awareness play. You want to grow your followers. I've seen, even on my own, I'll post a video that does really, really well, and then through those metrics, I can see if someone became a follower from that video. So to your point about kind of throwing fuel on the flame, if it is performing well and I'm getting followers from that video, and ideally they're qualified followers, put ad dollars behind it and bring that in more. I love that. Um, what are some examples? Because we've talked about some different formats and ways to use advertising. Do you have a specific example in mind? And I don't know if you can name names or brand names or anything, where they had a specific goal, the type of ad campaign that you were able to run for them, and kind of some of the results people could expect?
Yeah, great question. It's always difficult to paint with too broad a brush, or I should not. That's not the right way to put it. It's always hard if I give a specific example, because then people are like, well, I can get those exact same results, right? It's like, no, well, it's nuanced to every situation. But one thing that we're working on right now, I guess I'll bring this up, is a client. I can't mention her name specifically just due to privacy things, but she is in kind of a very niche consulting space, working with e-commerce e-commerce store owners, and helping them with various issues that they face. And so we're working on helping her to find that very specific type of person, so someone who is running an e-commerce business. And we're doing that through a variety of channels, including actually some paid search, because in that particular instance, there are questions that she can help solve. And so we can target people who are searching for those questions on Google about, things like P&L statements, things like managing inventory, managing churn, things like that in the e-commerce space, and say, hey, you're looking for a solution. I help you find the solution for this and many other things that you're also facing and battling. And with that particular example, we're actually still in the early days with her, so we're in that testing phase of figuring out, is paid advertising the right place for her to be? And I don't think fully know yet, because we're watching to see how do our campaigns do. We have success metrics in place to understand, what does success look like, and are we getting people into her funnel, into her flow, booking consultations with her or not. And so the jury is still a little bit out in that particular example, but that's an example of how we think about it and kind of frame campaigns for someone in this space.
You mentioned that paid advertising might not be for everyone. What's one way that you advise, one, people get in contact with you, and then two, what is that conversation you're having for that audit to understand if paid advertising will be right for them?
Yeah, so getting in contact with us is easy. Stubgroup.com. Go there and you can schedule a free consultation with our team. And what we do in that consultation is look at a number of things. First of all, that conversation of what is success, what are you trying to accomplish, and figuring out, do we think that what you're trying to accomplish is something that is doable through the platforms that we have experience with. Part of that comes down to cost expectations. So going back to that example, if we're like, hey, I want to spend $1 per email subscriber in this area, and we're like, well, clicks in this area are going to cost $1 in and of themselves. So no, that's not possible. Paid isn't the right fit. That could be one thing. Sometimes it could be not so much the cost per goal being the problem, but just, hey, I only have $250 a month to invest into advertising. Well, you really probably shouldn't do any advertising with that, because that's not enough to see what works and to scale. You're better off keeping that 250 yourself and then just focusing on the organic side of things, focusing on where you can spend your time and your energy to generate results. And maybe you get to the point, down the road after you've built up more of your brand and more customers to where you have some money to invest into advertising. So those are some of the things that we'll look at. We'll often do research into the platforms as well and see, okay, how closely can we get to targeting the exact niche audience you're going after, or what do cost per clicks generally look like in the particular space you're going after, and kind of put together a strategy based upon that.
You mentioned kind of a minimum spend, if you will. What is kind of the average spend us personal branders should expect to spend per month to get? I mean, obviously it depends on our goals, but to see some success. And is there kind of a minimum spend that you require if we were to work with you?
So I'll put kind of a general rule of thumb. I would say I rarely see success for people in this space who are allocating less than $2,000 per month in ad spend. Now that's a very broad number, but I say that because you have to be able to generate enough data to see what's working and what's not working. And when you start spending less than somewhere in that range, it's hard to get enough data to really see statistically significant differences and say, okay, this ad's a winner. Let's scale that ad, that kind of thing. Now, in terms of when we work with clients, we don't have a specific minimum where we say, okay, we won't work with anybody who's spending less than X, because we do look at it more from that data perspective, which is, hey, if you're in a really, really tiny, niche audience, we have a client, they're not personal brand per se, but they're targeting an incredibly niche audience. There's probably 100 people a year in this audience. Well, we don't have to spend a lot of money to reach those people. It's just all about finding where they are and being at the right place at the right time. And so maybe they could get away with a $500 per month budget, where most of the energy we're spending is finding those 100 people and where they spend their time, and then it doesn't cost much to actually show ads to them. But that's definitely the exception to the rule. Generally speaking, you're going to need at least 2,000, and then for some people more than that. Depends on how crowded the space is that you're operating in, and what is it going to take to stand out, and how big is the niche that you're going after.
And you talked about how if someone has kind of a $1 customer lifetime value, that it's much more difficult to break even or even profit off of advertising at times. So I sounds like kind of the high ticket offer industry, coaches, consultants who maybe have, $1,000 minimum new client or customer lifetime value, the numbers start to make a little bit more sense. So that's for our audience who's thinking, oh, is this right for me? John's mentioned, well, for those who are only profiting about $1 per client, certainly not. But if your consultation can be $500 an hour or $1,000 for a month, you only need a few clients, two or three clients to start seeing some revenue come through.
Exactly.
Um, Now I know there's a lot of advertising agencies in the world. Do you have kind of a unique approach or anything that you can speak to that would help someone kind of decide between you versus the competitor here?
Yeah, like there's lots of advertising agencies out there. Absolutely. Some of the things that we focus on here at Stub Group are, first of all, being very performance oriented. So we're not in the business of, hey, we got you a bunch of eyeballs on your ad. Isn't that a good thing? It all comes back to what is success and tracking that as best as we can. We spend a lot of time figuring out tracking things for clients and being able to show you, okay, here's what's happening from the ad spend that you're spending. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, here's the picture so that you can make educated decisions about whether to keep investing, whether to, stop investing, whatever the case may be. We just want to paint the picture like it is. So we focus very, very hard on that. Another area I would say that we're a bit unique in is the compliance space. And what I mean by that is all the advertising platforms, they have lots of policies that you have to abide by in order to be able to run advertising. And it's surprisingly hard sometimes to comply with those. And if you ever accidentally make a misstep and don't comply with something, it can be a nightmare to fix that and get a Google or a Facebook to give you permission to work with them again. And so we have actually an entire team internally who's focused just on compliance issues, helping our clients stay compliant, helping new clients who hire us get compliant if they've encountered issues, and just trying to make sure that you don't end up spending your energy fighting with Google or Facebook about why you should be allowed to run ads, and instead spend that energy actually running the ads and generating results.
Great. Well, John, if someone did want to reach out and get started with you, what's the best way for people to find you, take next steps, and kind of where can they go to find more information about you and your business?
Yeah, best place would be through our website, stubgroup.com. You can go to stubgroup.com/free for some free lead magnets, like we just talked about, a couple of different guides that could hopefully help you in a couple areas. And then you can also see it through our site where you could schedule a free consultation to learn more about potentially working together.
John, thank you so much for being on today's show. That's all for today's episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. To learn more about how to launch, grow, and monetize your personal brand, make sure to subscribe to Personal Brand Blueprint podcasts. Follow me, Dave Polykoff, on LinkedIn, and check out zenpost.com for details how we can work together directly. All links to that, plus everything with John and his group, will be down in the show notes below. Thank you, and see you on the next episode of the Personal Brand Blueprint.